Hey Jeff,
Howdy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing.
Good, good. Where are you based out of?
I'm in West Virginia.
Oh gosh, you are. Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. How's your
Yeah,
summer going?
a little warm, a lot of rain.
I love warm weather. Hot and humid is all perfect.
Absolutely. But God's blessed me. I have another day, so life's amazing.
Good to hear. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you for letting me come on to this then too. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, good. Yeah, Chloe said all good things.
Oh,
So,
good. Well, she's a sweetheart. She's a very much of a sweetheart. So she's good to get me in some of these things here.
oh, how'd the two of you meet?
So coincidentally, she lives very close to my office. And she was an employee of mine for a while. And she also was in the profession working for somebody else doing their marketing. So she had a little bit of background in the cemetery world already. But then she wanted to do her own stuff then too. So she continued to work for us as a consultant. So she does great things for us, still does a lot of administrative work for us, but a lot of marketing. Hmm.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. She's a good person and she lives a mile from here. So she pops in and sees us, and it's always a good thing. Hmm.
Well, that's good. So, Christina, let's get started real quick.
Sure.
Uh, Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jeff K with Echoes Across Time Legacy, and today we have a very special guest. Her name's Christine Towson,
Tosin.
if I pronounce that right.
Tosin. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, good. Glad I didn't mess that up. So, and she's with the tribute companies, and it's my understanding that that is a fourth generation family owned cemetery company that actually looks like it did on day one. So, Christine, with that said, well, why don't you take it from there? Tell us a little bit
Sure.
more about the tribute companies.
Sure. So the cemetery side of the business is four generations, and it started with my great grandfather in the Chicago area, and he came over from Italy. And so he was actually in the travel business when it was very rocky to be in the travel business, and people actually didn't have a lot of money to travel anymore. So he wanted to get into a more solid profession, so to speak. And he knew that everybody died. And so the cemetery world was something that he felt was more stable, and was the president of a prominent cemetery in the Chicago area, and eventually bought a cemetery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Oshkosh. And so that's how it began in the family. And then it's grown into become four cemeteries in Wisconsin. And
Wow.
I'm the fourth generation in the cemetery side. The tribute companies, however, I'm the second generation, and my father began the tribute companies as a related cemetery company, but not on the cemetery side. He was doing sales, consulting, sales management, and then added an architectural firm and a precast concrete manufacturing division. So it's all talks to each other, but it's not the same business, so to speak.
Wow, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was it like stepping into that kind of leadership with over that's got 100 years of history behind it?
Sure. Well, as family-owned businesses are not as easy as everybody thinks they are, and there's very many dynamics that come into play with that. And so, it was. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for anybody who wants to get into the family business truly with their heart and their passion, rather than it just being handed to them. I think that's part of the family curse, is when the next generation expects it to be handed to them and they feel entitled to have the business. And I was never in that position, nor was that ever going to be given to me like that. So I worked hard to learn the business then as well. And I really wanted to make sure that I proved myself to my parents, and my grandfather was alive at the time too when I got into the business. And so it was really important for me to show them that I was going to learn every component of the business rather than just it being handed to me. So I started in sales, commission only sales, and that's the heart and soul of any business. Firmly believe that, and everybody should learn how to sell. And so learned all of that too, and then just slowly learned every other component, the administrative side of it, the operational side of the business, and then became the general manager, became the vice president of cemeteries, and then slowly learned more and more about the rest of the business then too. So it didn't just happen overnight. It took a long time to learn everything, and I still have a lot to learn. I am certainly not a master at everything, and I have a team to help me out with those areas of weakness because I can't know everything, and I fully admit that. So it's been great to learn all the different courses along the way.
Yeah, I remember when I was in the telecommunications industry, I was an international project manager. And one of the things about being an international project manager is that, or any project manager, you don't have to know everything. You just have to know where to go to get the answers. So that's
So true. It's so true. And I think you at some point in time you have to learn that. I think when you're younger in your career, you think you have to know everything. And it's almost you're embarrassed when you have to say, I don't know the answer to it. Or some people
Mhm.
try to make up an answer and then they look like a fool when
Yeah.
they are called out on it. And I think all of us through time and humility learn our lessons, and then we figure out that, listen, I can't know everything. We've got to have a team that can help me through those areas that we don't know. And that's a huge part of growing in your career and through the success.
Yeah, and that's a very hard lesson to learn.
Oh yes. Yes, it is. It's
As I
humbling.
know.
It's humbling. Mm-hmm.
As I know.
Mm-hmm. You learned it
So,
too.
how do you balance honoring 100 plus years of tradition with the need of modernization and staying relevant?
Uh, for me, I think that is probably one of the bigger challenges in this profession, but bringing into the conversation about remembering the heart and soul of family and remembrance and the legacy that we all need to leave and should be leaving as our next generation comes up. That is the tradition part. And a lot of individuals need to be taught that. Unfortunately, our society is very selfish, and is becoming
Hmm.
more and more selfish as they continue to time goes on. And so for us right now, it's the modernization part is moving too quickly, and it's growing into the fact of, on the cemetery side and the funeral side of it, I don't need a funeral. It's too inconvenient. I don't want to inconvenience people. Cremate me, scatter me. I don't care, which is a very, very selfish perspective, because the funeral is not for me. It's for the
For
people that
everybody
we leave
else.
behind. And there's a psychology behind the final goodbye. And it's very detrimental when we don't give our loved ones the ability to say goodbye. So right now, the traditional side of saying goodbye has to be educated to those right now to be able to get out of their own heads and that selfishness and say, don't be thinking of yourself right now. Think about your next of kin, think about your family, think about your friends, and do it however you want. You can have a big party, but give them the opportunity to say goodbye. And don't think about, I don't want to do anything because it's inconvenient for me, or I'm a simple person. It's not for you. And that's just so selfish. And we need to educate on helping them get out of that. So that's where the modern part of society's going. And so the educational and just making sure that they understand how important it is to say goodbye.
Yeah, because I mean, most people think the headstone is to remember your deceased loved one. It's
Mm-hmm.
not.
Mm-hmm.
The headstone is for the living, not the dead.
Absolutely. And they always tell the stories. Those are really what are the fascinating part as you walk through cemeteries. And so people will also say, if when they are designing their headstone before there's a death, I'm simple, don't worry about it. I just want my name and birth year and death year. And we always encourage them to tell a story, put something on there that talks a little bit about who you are, because in 50 years, 75 years, whatever, grandkids, great grandkids, whatever, want to learn a little bit about who you are. And that story or the catchy little phrase or whatever they're going to put on there is the fun part about what you can put on that memorial. And so we really encourage it to be personalized.
Oh, and I can still resonate with that because I mean, in my company, my digital memories, we're all about storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
We do
Absolutely.
life, yeah, we do life stories, we do media preservation, we do all this stuff, and people they bring me their photos to digitize and restore, and that's awesome. But I feel people need to actually take it the next step as to, okay, who's in the picture? Where was the picture taken? Why was it taken? Who took the picture? Because as you mentioned, after this generation's gone, and this is going to sound interesting, but people aren't going to know you from the your pet in the picture.
Yes, absolutely. And it's coincidentally my mom, after my parents retired and I took over the company, my mom, that was her first project, is to take all of the family photos and create photo memory books,
Mhm.
and put all of that type of interesting information together about the story behind the relevant pictures and
Mhm.
when they were taken and what the significance was, because we're all concerned about that, of whether it's myself or my kids, these boxes and photo books and everything else is like, are they just going to throw it away and then that's all gone? And so
Mhm.
my mom has spent countless hours at putting these books together, and we all cherish them, but we don't know what's going to happen next and what the next generation is going to do. So it's important.
Yeah, that's why I tell my clients about the 3-2-1 rule, which is it's awesome that your stuff is digitized. It's awesome that your stuff that you still have the paper copies, but you always have to keep a third copy, whether that's in the cloud, it's in a NAS device or some type of storage device. So God forbid there's a hurricane, a fire, you still have that information. So you might not have the physical stuff, but you still have the memory of the pictures themselves.
Yes. Yes. They're precious. Hmm. Absolutely. They're precious. And that is the same thing as a story that you're leaving in a cemetery. And one of the areas, the modernization part then too, is cremation. And that is one of our bigger challenges right now is, and it's not, cremation in and of itself is not the challenge, but people believe that if I'm going to be cremated, that's all I need to think about. And so we, again, through education, we need to continue to tell them that you can be cremated. However, the next step is also to find a place to memorialize so that your story is not forgotten. Because if you're cremated and scattered, your story's gone. It's there's no place for somebody to go find you again. And there's no place to go find that genealogy and that permanent resting place. And so we, even if it's very simple, we're just really encouraging somebody to still have a cemetery, which is what we do, is we keep that history, we keep that genealogy.
Oh, that's so important because the other thing that we do is we create interactive genealogy trees.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice. I
so
love that.
yeah, so people can investigate their heritage one at a
I
time.
love that. We get it all, we get it every day at our cemetery, people coming in to look for that information. And we're generally the first place that people come to. I mean, there's Find a Grave and there's all sorts of different places then
Oh
too,
yeah.
but people come into us daily with lists of people that they're looking for. And when they discover somebody that they've been seeking for a long time that is in our cemetery, and we have just a little bit of information that they didn't have before, it's like they're winning the lottery. It's so important to them.
Yeah, because I've got a picture that sits on my desk of my great grandmother
Mhm.
from the late 1870s,
Mhm.
or around that time frame. I decided to restore it, colorize it, and from a genealogy perspective, it's amazing how much she looks like my mother
Oh,
because
interesting.
we're sisters. So it's
Hmm.
just incredible.
I love that.
So what does modernization in your industry look like
Mhm.
as an old tradition bound as this one?
Sure. I think for us as a whole, it's really the funeral itself is changing. It's becoming more of a celebration of life, and so it is more I upbeat. If people want it to be upbeat, it could be more of a party. We certainly see the horse-drawn carriages, the horse-drawn hearses, maybe even the motorcycle hearses, the food, the drink, the celebrations at the funeral. That is very different than it used to be, not even that long ago, because the funerals were expected to be somber. And now they're expected to be more of a let's tell the story, let there be laughter, let there be some sort of celebration. And so at the funeral, it is a lot different. At the cemetery side of it, the options that we've got and have available has just become so much more personalized. When I came into the business, we were taught to sell a few different very basic options. There was a bronze memorial that came in three different sizes, and those were what we could sell. There was a granite headstone that came in basically three different sizes, and they were all the same shape. And that was what we were taught to sell. And so now it's so many options, and you can sell cremated remains that turn into diamonds, and you can sell different urns that are shaped like golf clubs or that are shaped like Harley Davidsons, or then the memorialization, the headstones are shaped like guitars and hearts, and there's so many different options, and which is wonderful. It's a wonderful way to personalize. However, it gets very confusing when you're trying to train people on how to sell this. But if somebody asks us, can you do this? We generally can say, yes, we can. We can get that for you. And so that's the modernization part, is making sure that we can personalize and say, yes, we can do that. We can find that for you. And so that is where we're finding that people are really wanting to have something unique and really special to them, and we can come up with those different options for them.
Wow, that's really impressive. Yeah,
Hmm.
because I remember when my mom passed, we went to the funeral home and they had everything from just a pine box coffin to like a shabby chic coffin for like 5 grand or so.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm like, it's just wild. This thing
Yes.
you can
Oh
do
yeah.
these days. And because I mean, when I was looking for myself, one of the things that really intrigued me was I can be planted and as a tree.
Hmm. Hmm. That is
So
an option.
yeah. So I mean, my headstone would then be a tree instead of just a headstone. So I
Right.
thought that was really interesting.
Right. And that's important to people, is if they're giving back to the environment. And so that is important to somebody. Now, the other side of the coin is that might not be that might be seen as offensive to another cultural group. So we need to be able to also tune into that type of solution and be able to shift into what is important to everybody then too. And just know that there's there's going to be an answer. There will be a solution for everybody.
That's awesome. I was doing some reading lately, and have you ever heard of something called a water cremation?
Yes, absolutely. It's alkaline hydrolysis, correct? Is that
Yes.
probably what you're referring to? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What exactly is that?
So there's a concept that I'm going to say was introduced maybe 8 to 10 years ago. And alkaline hydrolysis, the easy term is to say water cremation, because what it is that the body goes into a chamber, and it is a process where it's heat activated water and chemicals, but they're environmentally friendly chemicals. So it's I don't know the exact chemicals, but they're nothing harsh. And because of the heat of the water, it decomposes the body at a very rapid pace. And so the body then will be quote unquote cremated or disintegrated. And then it will just be part of the water that is left behind, the liquid that is left behind. There will still be bone fragments, just like a standard fire cremation will be. There will still be bone fragments that would be having to be pulverized, but then the liquid that is left behind would actually be flushed out. And so it's compared to cremation in that regard, that there's bone fragments that are left behind, and it's water versus heat in a crematory. So a lot of states are approving that option. The equipment is still pretty costly to get, but it is becoming more and more acceptable with that type of option. And so it's just a different form of final disposition is what we would call it, just to dispose of the body.
How do you, I can understand fire cremation, you've got ashes for an urn, but what do you do
Mhm.
with water?
So the water would actually go, I hate to say it, but it's actually flushed into the septic system. It's fairly sanitary, so with what's left behind. And then again, you would have the bone fragments just as you would with cremation, that those could go into an urn similar to a fire cremation. So you still would be able to put that remains into an urn and have permanent memorialization or have something to take with you. But it is flushed into the septic system.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's it's becoming more acceptable, and I think that the first several times I heard about it, there's a little bit of an ick factor when you first hear about it, but as I learn more and more about it, it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't.
Well, good.
Hmm.
Yeah, you mentioned celebration of life videos, and that's something that we really take to heart about. And we try to help out funeral homes that actually don't do it themselves.
Hmm.
But one of the things I try to tell my clients is why wait to have a celebration of life funeral after you pass away? Why not have one now?
Hmm.
So that's one of the things we emphasize as well.
And now, do you do that when they're towards the end of their life, or do you do
No,
that when they're still healthy and okay?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I love that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so we kind of do both. Actually, we do both.
Okay. I love that
Now,
idea. I've heard of that concept, and there is a lot of merit to it because it why not see your family and friends one more time and have that celebration of life and hear the stories they're going to tell about you before you pass away, and actually understand what they're going to be talking about you with, and tell the stories.
absolutely. Matter of fact, we also do the same thing for pets.
Oh yes, yes, I love that.
Yes. Yes, I love our four-legged friends.
Awesome. It's very good that you do that because they are family too.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Now, from a pre-planning perspective, why do you think so many families put off the end of life conversation until a crisis forces the issue?
One of the reasons I think is because nobody offers to them to have the conversation. I think that's the number one reason is that they don't know how to start it because nobody's asking them to begin the conversation. And we encourage that to happen ahead of time. And we try to make it very simple for them. So that is an area where if you can make this a simple, non-threatening conversation, it is that much easier. But if nobody's asking them to start making these arrangements or encouraging them and showing them how simple it can be, nobody's going to just have the initiative to wake up in the morning and say, okay, let's go make our funeral and cemetery arrangements. That's not a normal thing to think about. Now, if there is somebody we would partner with, like an estate attorney, that would encourage them to do this after they've done their will or updated their will, or an insurance provider that once they've done some life insurance or updated their life insurance, it says, okay, now we would really encourage you to go talk to your local funeral home, talk to your local cemetery about this conversation, or somebody along those lines that would say, you now need to go do this. It would be that much more acceptable, and it would be that much more easy. But unfortunately, there's not enough people telling people to do that. So once they have the conversation, they get it. And once they make the plans, they feel much more at peace, and there's a peace of mind in knowing that it's done. But it's just, they don't know to do it otherwise. And so that's what we see, is that nobody's encouraging them to do that.
Yeah, you were mentioning life insurance and especially, but one of the things that it's funny, I just wrote a Facebook post about it. We do media insurance because
Oh,
like people age and decay, so does your media. So so that's why pre-planning for that is also important as well, because your media becomes part of your legacy as well from an estate attorney perspective. So I thought that's very interesting. One
mhm.
of the things that crossed my mind though is, do families actually put off the conversation because they're afraid of their own, for lack of a better word, demise?
Yes, there is a segment of the population that is there's a little bit of superstition, and they feel that if they make these arrangements, something will happen to them. Absolutely. There is that fear. And so we see that with particularly some cultural groups. And that is something that we have, they're getting better with the generations. But that fear is a real thing. What we also do see is that just talking about mortality in our society, we're terrible at it. The
Mm.
American culture is just terrible at talking about death. And other societies, other cultures throughout the world are much better, are much more open at talking about death and dying and the afterlife. And it's a much more natural conversation for them. And really, dying is the ultimate of death and on earth and life on earth. And so to them, that is what you're on earth for, is to get to your death. And so that we're just not good at it in the United States. And so we see that and we hear it. But if we can make it a little bit easier and softer, we'll do a better job at that.
Yeah, I can really resonate with that. From my own personal perspective, I, in I guess May of 2024, I had a scheduled heart valve replacement, and they said, "Oh, you'll be in and out in a day." Well, when I got up, it was 10 days later.
Ooh. Gosh, that's scary.
And everything changed.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everything.
Puts it into
Friends,
perspective.
friends that I thought would be there weren't. People that I didn't think would be there are. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And the stories that I could tell on that is just incredible.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And yeah, it really puts things into perspective. And then all of a sudden you take a step back and when you have that moment and that glimmer of your own mortality, it does really put you in a different perspective. Or when you're dealing with it with a loved one, that's when we see people do get serious about this conversation, is when a parent dies or God forbid a child dies. It's when people all of a sudden say, I've got to do something. I don't want to put my children in this position to have to take care of this for me. And so we know that there's top of mind awareness right after a death takes place, because they are thinking about their own arrangements then.
Absolutely. What's the greatest gift of having these conversations early from the for the person planning, for the family left behind?
Yeah. It's it's the peace of mind. It's the sense of relief for not having to be put into a place of chaos at the time of a death. We see a lot of families who are would be torn apart and are torn apart if mom or dad has not made these arrangements, because they're fighting and bickering over what they feel are the right arrangements and who should be paying for it and how it should be done. And so when somebody's prepaid and made all of these arrangements ahead of time, there's no questions. It's done. And so even if there's family dynamics, there's nothing to talk
Hmm.
about. There's no decisions to be made. It's paid for. The decision is made. Now they can focus on saying goodbye. Now they can focus on mom and dad's death and being able to move forward with accepting that death. Not all of these decisions that they have no idea even where to begin on making these decisions and more or less how to pay for them. So it's such a gift. And we see so many times when people pre plan how much it's really saved the family in the end. And it's just a gift of peace of mind.
Yeah, I remember, excuse me, my parents pre-planned everything and it was a blessing.
Hmm. You bet. You bet. And I think a lot of times what we do see is that sometimes parents will pre-plan a little bit, and then they'll tell the kids, hey, I got everything done, or they'll put something on a piece of paper and it's all been done, don't worry about it. And then unfortunately then the kids come in with this thought that, hey, mom and dad did everything, and unfortunately nothing was done. And that might even be more devastating to the children than nothing being done at all, because they believed that everything was done and taken care of, and now they're all of a sudden coming in and said, well, for 15 years, mom has told me that this has all been taken care of. And then
Hmm.
we will say, no, she bought a grave, she bought one space at the cemetery, but nothing else. And so we also encourage children, adult children, to when their parents say that, ask them for more specifics, ask them to see what actually has been done and paid for, because we see that way too often, that the parents are not completely arranged, and then there's also devastation when that death does happen.
Wow. So, what do you hope the tribute companies look like 100 years from now?
Sure. Yeah, fair question. We are very unique in our space. It's very unique to be a family owned cemetery still. There's a lot of religious cemeteries, there's a lots of conglomerate cemeteries, and we are holding near and dear this family ownership, and we know that we're special in this space. So to continue that is important, and but becoming challenging. I do have two children, and grown children, and they're both successful in their own careers. So I'm working on a succession plan right now. Um, and so that might be a little bit different, but I'm working on growing my employees and developing my employees to perhaps take over as a succession plan there. But we are continuing to grow in our space, whether we're taking on more cemeteries, whether we're continuing to have precast concrete manufacturing facilities. And so I'm hoping that we can continue to be just really unique and offer a unique space that we can offer many different products and services to cemeteries and funeral homes in this profession. It's rapidly changing, and we're just trying to stay at the front of that change and be able to offer our clients and our families something that is right at the tip of the change that's coming. And so that's what I'm hoping that the tribute companies as a whole can continue to stay as a front runner.
Oh, that's awesome. So,
Mm-hmm.
in closing, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I think for my from my perspective, this is a profession that is very near and dear to my heart, and it's not for everybody to do very well in. But when we get those of us that are in this profession that do really well, I just really encourage anybody who's considering getting into the funeral or the cemetery business to consider it, because you can do really well in it. It makes us all really go home at the end of the day and feel good about what we're doing. It's again, I will reiterate, it is not for everybody, but we all have a different perspective on life, and we appreciate what happens in life. And so it's very refreshing to see that when we can go home at the end of the day and say we appreciate things a lot differently than other people do. So um, it's just a great profession, and I think it's just something that if anybody's ever considering getting into it, I highly encourage them to explore it.
Amazing. So,
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, I really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you joining.
Yes.
And for the people listening, this is Jeff K with Echoes Across Time Legacy. If you know somebody in the elder care space, we would love to interview you. So please feel free to reach out. Our information will be available below. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.